Great. Oh, here's Chaya Kaufman. This is so lucky. Another person. Now 2 people will hear my story. Now we just doubled our we doubled our attendance. Okay. Oh, you don't know? So great. So here's your chance. So Chaya, put on your camera. Come on. I need a little more support, a little more visual support. We're going to be talking about visuals. Ah, excellent. Look at this. Wonderful. Now we have the 3 of us. Who needs more people than this for our intimate gathering? All right. So here's a story that I always tell in my sukkah every year. This story somehow really touched me to the core. So there's a chassid of Rabbi Aaron of Karlin in the olden days, a couple of 100 years ago. Rabbi Aaron Karliner was one of the students of the Maggid, like the Alter Rebbe was, the Baal HaTanya was. And one of his chassidim was very poor, but he was very broad-minded, and he was always besimcha. And he had a next door neighbor who was very wealthy, a wealthy misnagid. He was stingy, he was pessimistic, fearful. And the chassid would always be singing, and the misnagid was against singing. He didn't allow singing in his sukkah. There was no energy. And the worst time for this poor misnagid. Misnagid is someone who's against chassidus because it was too happy. But the worst time was Sukkot, because the chassid would invite guests and they would dance around. And the wealthy neighbor had a lot of food, but there was no atmosphere. There was only a feeling of obligation, no joy. So he decided, the wealthy neighbor decided next year he's not going to tolerate this over Sukkot. He decided, he gave a decree, everyone in the town worked for him, and he gave a decree, don't give any wood to the chassid to build his sukkah, because the chassid would go around after everyone had built, and someone would give him a rusty nail, someone would give him a piece of wood, and he somehow made a sukkah out of all of these things. And his neighbor told him, his neighbor told all the people, don't give him anything. Okay, so he doesn't know. So he's going around, and everyone says, I'm afraid to give you because I'm afraid your neighbor will fire us. So he gets an idea. He goes, the poor chassid goes to the cemetery, because there were planks there. Before they would put up a stone matzeva, a stone for, with the person's name, they would have like these temporary wood planks just with the name till the stone went up. So he gathered the chassids, he gathered a few of these wooden plaques that were lying on the side, and he said he's going to pray very hard that nobody dies over Sukkot, so they won't need these temporary plaques, and he'll return them after Sukkot. And he builds a sukkah. And so he builds a sukkah. So his wealthy neighbor is in his sukkah, and he's thinking, oh, this is going to be such a great year. Finally, there'll be no singing to interrupt me. And suddenly he hears good yontif, singing, kiddush, guests, dancing, and he's outraged. He's just absolutely outraged, the wealthy neighbor. And after the fish, he couldn't contain himself, and he ran over to his neighbor and he said, who gave you this wood? And the chassid said, first relax, make a l'chaim, let's sing a niggin, and then I'll tell you. Okay, so no one lent me wood this week, or they said they would lose their job. So last night I was walking around town, and who did I meet suddenly but the Malach HaMaves, the angel of death. I met him, Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom. I said hello to him, he said hello to me. And then I asked him, what brings you to town? I asked him, the angel of death, what brings you to town? And he says, business. And I said to him, who? And he said, the angel of death said to me, your neighbor. And I said to the angel of death, no need. He's been dead for years. He's like a body without a soul. There's no life. There's nothing inside. And the angel of death said to me, okay, I believe you, he's dead. Thanks, you saved me time. Can I give you something in return? Ah, you can keep those wooden planks. I won't take anybody from your town for the next 8 days. That's fine. You'll be able to keep all your planks of wood. And by this time, the wealthy neighbor is weeping profusely. And and the chassid says, why I'm so happy tonight is that I saved you from the angel of death. That's why I'm especially happy tonight. And then the wealthy neighbor is weeping profusely. Why are you so happy? You have nothing. How can you be so happy? And the chassid answers, for this, you need a Rebbe. So he says, come with me to Reb Arla in Karlin, and he comes with him, and he also becomes a chassid. L'chaim, l'chaim. So that's one of my favorite stories that I tell every year on Sukkot. I really like that. It has a few highlights. The Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom with the Malchim base, etc. So now you know my favorite Sukkah story. But we have more. For those, for Safta who's just joining us now, you missed the story. Oh, more people are coming. They missed the story. Okay, maybe at the end I'll give a little summary. But now we're going to look at something from Shir Hashirim. So there's a line in Shir Hashirim, Smolo tachas l'roshi v'yaminu tahapkeni. His left hand is under my head and his right arm embraces me. This is the Kala, the bride says this. So the Alter Rebbe says on this, the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, says that Smolo tachas l'roshi, his left hand is under my head. That's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And his right hand embraces me. That's Sukkot. So the left arm, the left is the side of Yira, Gvora, judgment. And the right arm is a sign of love, closeness, affection. And the Alter Rebbe quotes the Arizal, the holy Arizal, buried in Svat, that a valid sukkah, it has to have 2 walls and a tefach, a handbreadth.